Hi, everybody. Today we are going to be looking at embellishments. And when I talk about people who have way too many embellishments, the problem is me right here. And I decided today that I was going to look at some ways to use these. So, one thing that tends to be a block for me and using my embellishments on cards is not knowing if I've got anything that's color coordinated with it. Also, just not thinking that the color is exactly right. So, I'm going to show you some ways to get around that. And I'm going to show some ways to build your whole card around using these embellishments. If you're like me, I love them. I love opening a big glittery drawer like this, and I love organizing them. But I also want to make sure that I take the time to use them so that I can, of course, get more. How fun is that? So, today I'm going to look at several ways that you can get these things out of the drawer and get them on your cards. So, let's go. First, we're going to build a card based on these embellishments. So I have a lot of embellishments on these little pieces of acetate as well as the ones in my drawer. And today we're going to use these because they're all in a pack together. So we've got the colors. We can color coordinate a card and use up tons of these embellishments. So I'm going to create a rainbow front so that we can use those beautiful rainbow embellishments. And yes, of course, I've checked these shades of colors to make sure they look right, and they do look great with those embellishments. So you can always do a little test run and make sure that your colors are matching okay. So while I start creating a rainbow that is going to coordinate with my embellishments, let me tell you where I'm going with this idea. So we're creating a card around the fact that we want to use embellishments. I have found the easiest way to use tons of embellishments on a card is to use some type of frame that you're going to create with the embellishments, or to use this 3D embossing folder that we're about to use, which has a built-in frame in the middle. And it also has lots of floral type things on it that you can a lot of times put those little embellishments like the center of a flower, and it really will help you use them up. So we're going to do only 3 colors but create an entire rainbow here. So we're using a pink, a yellow, and a blue, and I've popped those colors up on the screen. And then we're going to put this through the die cutting machine with the embossing folder that I'm using called Soiree. So you could create this with things that you already have. You could create a frame out of die cuts that you could go around and put embellishments on. You could create a big floral pattern that has lots of flowers and centers. Sometimes things like a mandala, I don't know how you say that. Those types of patterns have lots of dots in them, and you can take those little pearls and really add them all over the card front to help you use up those amazing embellishments. So for this one, it's going to be adding them as a frame around our sentiment. So once I've created my rainbow here, the colors here will kind of fade into each other and make the full rainbow set. So the yellow and pink is creating orange, the blue and pink is creating purple, the blue and yellow is creating green. So I'm just going to continue to add. I'm keeping this pretty light, and I'm only using the lightest of those 3 colors to start because I know I'm about to run this through the embossing machine or the die cutting machine to create that embossed image. And then I'm going to take those colors and go over the top to emphasize them a little bit more. So here's our embossing folder. You see how it has the frame in the middle right there that doesn't have any embossing? That's a perfect place to put a sentiment, but it also creates that raised frame so that we can add our embellishments around it. So I'm going to line my little stripes up in here, and we will get this nice and embossed. So that you know, this is Nikki Baxley, Nikki Hearts Cards, and I'm so glad to have you here. Make sure you've hit the like and subscribe. All the links to these items will be in the description, and this will be a little bit longer video because we're going to go over 2 completely different kind of card styles and ways that we can use these embellishments. So hang in there with me. We've got a lot of fun stuff packed in this video. So before I start adding my embellishments in this little frame area, I'm going to make sure I stamp my sentiment, and I'm also going to add a little bit more color. So I'm taking the darker colors that I picked out. I had 6 colors in the beginning. This is the darker. So we started with the light whipped honey, and now we're doing shea butter. And on the Catherine Pooler color wheel, this is the next shade above. And it just makes this a little bit darker. Those embellishments are a little bit darker than our light rainbow. And it also, the ink really picks up on those raised areas, which gives it a really beautiful look. So I'm going to add the stone blue, which is the darker level than over tranquil, which is the one that we used earlier as the lighter one. And then I'll show you the red and we'll get into making this frame. And here's the dark pink or red that we put over the pink area. Now let's look at some tips and tricks on ways to make this frame and keep everything lined up easily for you. Off camera, I added a sentiment, and now I'm looking. I've got some rainbow pearls and some rainbow gems. The difference, the pearls are a little bit lighter color and they're smooth on the top, and the gems are faceted. So I'm trying to see how many different things I can use on this card. So what I decided to do was to create the square in the pearls and then add some extra accents of gems. What I love about these acetate sheets is that I can kind of look at my spacing as it's sitting here to make sure that I've got things right. So what I'm doing is holding this piece of acetate up. I'm going to go in the exact same order and create the exact same amount so I can kind of count how many fit here without doing too many measurements. And I can also see which one was the center. So I can move these around and make sure that I've got them lined up. I do love using a T ruler just to keep everything even, because I'm actually using different size embellishments. So I've got some little bitty ones and some kind of medium size ones, and I'm going to be using both of those sizes along this square outside. So it depends on your embellishments. These from Honeybee Stamps actually have a little glue dot on the back, but you'll see me sometimes adding a dot of glue, especially when I'm getting started on a pattern like this, because that dot of glue will allow me to move this around if I mess it up. So a lot of times I will add a little glue to it when I'm getting started, and then once I've got the pattern going, I can take it and just stick them on because they already really have an adhesive behind them. So once I get my pattern to where I want it to be, I can start going back and forth and not using the glue as much. So one thing I like about creating multiple sizes and kinds on the card is that it does give your design a little bit more interest than just lining this with all the exact same embellishments. It helps me to feel more like I'm using them, I don't know, in a more creative way if I do different sizes like this, and the fact that I'm using a rainbow color, which perfectly coordinates with the card. So I don't know if you feel that way, but I'm just a little bit picky about my cards, and so if I'm going to use up my embellishments, I want to make sure that they are looking good. Okay, one more tip on this. See how I'm using the T ruler to make sure that I'm lining these up on the opposite side correctly? So when you're looking at a pattern, this is a symmetrical pattern of the embossing folder. It's a square. You really need to have your lines straight, and you really need there to be an embellishment directly across from each other, just like you would think on any square. You're going to have it really even, and that just makes the design more pleasing to the eye. Okay, so I have all the pearls on now, and now I'm going to come in with the gems. Like I said, these are similar colors, but they have more facets, and when you see this card up close, you'll realize they are different. This perfectly has a place to put them. It's kind of at the edge. It's right in the center of a flower. And I considered putting this in the center of all these flowers, but I ended up just keeping it kind of towards the middle of this card, and love how it turned out. It frames that sentiment perfectly. Okay, and here's an up close of that so you can see. Now let me show you my next thought on what we can do to use up those embellishments. I'm grabbing a piece of colored paper and a piece of white paper to demonstrate for you today. And this way is using a shaker card, but I want to show you some different shaker fronts and what the embellishments look like with these. First, I'm taking out some acetate, which is what you normally use on a shaker card. And next, I'm putting vellum next to it. Vellum, you can get it in different colors. This one is a white vellum, so it has more of an opaque look to it, but you're still going to be able to see these embellishments through the paper. but it changes like the colors that you can use. You can use some bright colors and kind of mute them down. So I'm going to show you several different colors and what the difference is when you're using vellum versus acetate so that you can see that your embellishments actually can go a long way if we just change up a few things we're doing. And I'll show you an example card with this as well. But what I picked was the top is a clear sequin, has a little bit of silver to it. The middle is a shaker mix that is Christmas. It has some light and some dark pieces. And the bottom is confetti. I'm going to zoom in on these a little bit so that you can see them better. So of course, acetate is just clear. It's going to look the exact same as it is, but you can see these shaker pieces look different on white versus on a color. So that's an option already. And then look at this with vellum. I'm going to raise up this vellum because in a shaker card, you're going to have it raised up off the pieces, and we'll look at the difference in those. But you can see the color, but you can't make it out. It definitely mutes it, and it gives you a lot more options with your shaker pieces. I laid down some foam tape so that we can set this on top, because when you have a shaker card, you're not directly pressed against those pieces. And do you see how even the bottom that's like rainbow sprinkles, it's really kind of muted, and you could use pretty much any color in there, and for the most part, it's going to match your card. Grab the camera off the stand to get even closer. So you can see there's colors under the vellum, but you just can't see them as well, especially on a dark background. So you can do a lot more with your embellishments than you think. I wouldn't worry about them matching as much when you've got some vellum there. So I'm going to take you through a recent card that I did where I used this idea and I created a frame with the vellum. I ended up using clear silver color behind it, but I really could have used anything. I could have used blues because my background is blue. I had a lot of options, and it was really fun to kind of use up those pieces. So if you have a card and you're wanting to create a shaker piece, you need to create it doesn't have to have a frame, but it's got to have a front piece. And so what I was doing is I was marking around that oval frame, and now I'm going to cut out my piece of vellum and I adhere it to the back of that frame. All right, and here's how that'll look. So a nice frosty frame. Like I said, you can hint at colors behind it, but you really can't tell what's back there. You just know that it's fun, it's shaking, and it's sparkly. So I'll do this quickly. To build a shaker, you've got to add some type of adhesive to the back of your frame, and then we'll add the vellum. Now, because you're usually using vellum or acetate, it is a lot easier and less messy if you will use a double-sided adhesive instead of glue. So I always suggest using double-sided strips, and this is a very skinny frame, so I'm using, I think, a 1/8 inch double-sided adhesive right here. And then you can just stick your vellum or your acetate or whatever you're using right here as your window and add it. Now, once you have adhered that, you're going to need some foam tape. And I advise using these strips. These are little foam strips, I believe from scrapbook.com. And you can take the strip and kind of bend it, especially if it's something curved like this. It's just really nice not to have to do 100 different pieces and try to fit them together so your shaker pieces don't fall out. So think of this as like a little container. You don't want to have any breaks in it. And when you have a long piece like that, it makes it a little easier. Next, it's always good to powder inside the adhesive area because the sides of the foam adhesive can have some sticky to them, and all your little shaker pieces will stick to that foam if you don't powder it. So do not take the backing off of the adhesive yet. Just go around the inside edges with the powder. This is really nice with acetate because you can put as much powder as you want in there and nobody's going to be able to know. Sometimes on acetate, you can see the powder and it can look a little bit messy. And then my next tip on shaker cards is to pour your embellishments in the middle or where your shaker window is going to go instead of putting them in the well that you created on the shaker frame. And I say that because a lot of times you will just spill them or not be able to line your card up correctly if you can't see what you're doing. So if you're trying to flip all of these embellishments over into the middle when you've got them in your frame, it's just going to cause you some problems. So go ahead and put your embellishments out on the card backing, then put your frame on top. Okay, and then of course, once you've got it nice and sealed, you definitely need to shake it because that's what shaker cards are for. They're so fun. So you can tell that there's something shimmery in there, but you can't really tell what color it is. So you can do this with any colors. I could have done bright blues, all kinds of things, but get those shaker pieces out and use them. They are in your drawers and they need to be used and can bring joy to people that you're sending your cards to. So I'm going to pop up some final pictures. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button. Everything that I used in this video will be linked in the description, so make sure to go through that. And I'll pop up another video here at the end that I think you'd be interested in. Have a great day. Bye.